is now being recorded.
Okay, so to go back to the top of the list of agenda items, we are recording them, each of the meetings. So from the home on the IQ360 SharePoint site, the meeting info link on the left. If you come into the meeting info, you'll see the recordings. Under FY12 and recorded meetings. So they'll be placed down there underneath here. This one will be there as well, but I want to let everybody know that. So if there are some people that you were hoping could attend that could not attend today's session, they'll be able to get to it here. Second quick item for the quality culture. My particular team, one of the teams I'm working on, we are the defect quality team. We have come across a little bit of a stump. So if you go down through shared documents, quality culture, and then the defect goals, I will attach this to an email and send it out as well. But this on-premise draft, if you would take a look at this and give me some email feedback. I didn't want to wait until next month's meeting, and I don't have enough time to open it up for heavy discussion, but I can always call a separate meeting. Thinking of cloud development and SaaS offerings, we are looking at this very first metric here, a leading indicator for release. It's a defect trend coming up to the last 2 or 3 weeks of your release. So far to date, with all the discussions that we've had, it doesn't appear as though many people are using this type of a defect trend for SaaS offerings. So I'm asking anybody out there on the phone in our QA world or even in our dev world, we've got some people from dev on the line. If you have anybody, know anybody that had experience with this, the question we have is, what type of leading indicator for quality is used for SaaS offerings prior to release? Is there any metrics or trends that are used that anybody has seen or heard of? Please email me and send me that information, and hopefully we can get some feedback. We're doing some online research as well, but we're kind of banging our head against the wall a little bit on this one, trying to determine whether this even applies to SaaS offerings or not, and if it does, how it would apply. So if you could just take just a few minutes to do that. Like I said, I will send this out after the meeting to everybody who's on the IQ360. So pass around, spread around, talk to your friends, QA blogs, whatever you've got available to you. We're just trying to bring in some additional information to try and help us get our head wrapped around if there are leading indicators for quality prior to release in the SaaS environment. Any questions on that? Okay, great. So the next thing that we have on the agenda, which will take up the majority of our time, and I was trying to hustle through all my stuff real quick, Ken Creemore has brought a group of individuals, I believe one of his sprint teams, to share with us some information about kind of how they're running their sprints and how they use fitness within their sprints. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. Ken, just go ahead and request. I'll stop sharing. Go ahead and request control of the screen.
Okay. Okay, so we've been running probably just about a year now, a slightly different model and a slightly different approach to automation. And our goal was, how do we push automation into Scrum teams? How do we have QA participate in that? And by that I mean actually have QAs using and running the automation. And the other part of it is have the Scrum team control their automation and make the decisions around what automation they need or don't need. And what does that do? Well, how does that change how you approach things sprint by sprint? What does it mean to the developer on that team? And the communication between QA and developer becomes a big issue. The communication has to be there all the time, and the developers actually play a significant role in the automation piece. So rather than me get on and do a demo of Fitnesse, I invited one of our Scrum teams who's been doing this for the past year. They go by the name of the A team, and Fong Ha is their Scrum Master. So Fong is here. Jean is a QA on that team. Jason is a QA on that team. And Wen is another QA on that team. We have James here, who's a developer for that team. We do have a couple of developers on the team that are away on vacation, so James is going to have to represent the developers today. And then I invited two of the members from our automation team, whose role is to support the automation framework so that the QAs can use this. So I have Kurt here today, and Rodolfo is here today with us. And Noel is away on vacation. He's in Japan at the moment, so he won't be a part of this today. So on that note, I'm just going to hand it over to Fong. As I say, he is the Scrum Master for this team, and let him and the team walk you through what it is they do.
Okay. Afternoon, everybody. This is Fong. So I'm Scrum Master for the A team and the I team, and also the automation team. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I'm showing is a version 1. So what I'm going to do is actually step through the workflow that we do during planning and the discussion that we have on a story. I'm just going to pick any story that we did during the development of stage payment processing for 300. And this particular story entails the description there, and there is during planning we have a bunch of acceptance criteria that we put together, and one of them, depending on the story, in this particular case, the team decided that we need some automated regression tests, which is designated as the acronym IRT, and also some FRTs require the fitness regression test. And of course, some approve error messages as being the acceptance criteria. So all this is basically decided during our sprint planning meeting. And if I'm going to scroll down to the tasks for the story, I can see that these are the tasks that were planned. And QA basically, in this particular case, Jean would enter the test cases, and the test cases would indicate whether these test cases involve the creation of FRT, fitness regression tests. It's called regression test because we basically things that these tests need to be run on a daily basis, and we wanted to make sure that it doesn't regress on a daily basis as we check in code in a continuous delivery model. There are servers and environments that are set up to run these tests on a daily basis once Jean check it in at the end of her effort. So I'm going to let Jean take over from this point and step you through some of the efforts that she did for this story. And since we are also in regression, she also is working on some regression related tests, and now she'll step you through a test that she's working on and show you how easy it is to put it together, and as a non-technical person from the QA point of view. So Jean, please take over. Yep.
Hi, this is Jean.
So from the going back to the story, in the test case, maybe Jean can pick a test case that we can show. Yeah, if you go back to the story. So basically, these are all the test suites that were generated during the project, and each suite have, if you drill down on them, they have tests within the suite. So some suites are fairly complicated with more than one test, so they are grouped into the suites, test suites. And basically, any test within a suite fail, then you'll get an error message. We'll show you that later on, as the automation team will show you the infrastructure later on. So this particular story, there was 15949, and the story is about prevent pre-authorization if shipment is without invoice. Yeah, so this is actually the Fitness server that you're looking at, the Fitness interface that you're looking at. And Jean was working on that story, and this is I just decided that we need a fitness test. So Jean would create the test here. So if you, for example, were to click on edit, you can see how this test can be edited and modified. So each one of these lines is a command that Jean enters as she steps through the UI. And she'll go into detail more as she shows a test that she's working on right now currently. Any questions so far? Okay, so moving on. So these are test weeks. So let's jump onto the regression, because since we are in the regression phase of the delivery process, so let's jump back to version 1. And okay, yeah, so login. So Jean will come in here and choose a team, I guess. And there is a regression story that we created. In here, there are assigned modules, and Jean is actually assigned to work on IC for this regression phase. So in here, there are regression stories that are actually the test plans that we need to go through from before we release every time. So she will come here basically to make sure that she's gone through all these test plans manually once, and then decide on whether there are tests that need to be automated. So I'll let Jean take over from here.
Hi, this is Jean. Okay, the UI now show the IC test case we are going to complete during our regression. And some of the test case is going to write the FRT, Fitness regression test.
So
and some will, some of the tests we decided it's good to have the ART, automation regression test. The ART is going to create it by James, our dev, and the FRT is going to create it by me. And today I would like to show you a test case I just created lately. It's the test case 19. This test case is in IC shipment. It's 2 tests, post-IC shipment entry with 3 different costing methods set up in option. First, I'm going to open my own machine and open Sage 300 IC option. So in Sage 300 IC option, user can choose to update their item cost with different methods. User can choose to update their item cost when they post the entry immediately, or they can choose to update the item cost when run the day end at the end of the day. So before, if I test this option, I have to repeat the same step with different costing methods set up. So the same step has to repeat 3 times. Now I found it's very useful to use the FRT. So I just copy the same FRT script and to run with the different company database. Now I'm going to quickly show you the very easy test case. So test case 19, post-shipment with 3 different cost methods. So I create 3 different companies. The first company called the posting. so it's going to update the cost when posting. And the second company, different setup, and the third company, different setup. I can just easily copy the same step using the different company. Actually, I'm accounting background. I don't have any computer technical training in the school. So first, I'm very worried to don't know how to run it, how to write a script. But with the help of our team, and I can easily learn how to write a test case. Now I'm going to easily explain the test case. Yeah, don't know what to, okay. Okay. So, first I just say the open company. Use the layout map. This is the layout map. IC 3210 means the layout map for the IC shipment.
Yeah, we'll show you that later.
And we can show it later. And layout map, our automation team, Rudolph, will show us later. So you don't, for the QA, you don't need to have any computer background. As long as you can get help from the automation team, they know the layout map, the Java, you can easily just be the user of the Fitnesse test. So I open a company, and if I want to click this button, detail, right? I just simply write in the insert click button detail. Very easy. And if I want to type this item number, I just easily write down something like insert type item number. And if I finish all the entry, I want to post it. Same thing. I just say click post button. So you'll get familiar after create couple of the Fitnesse test. Now we start to run. Do we have time to run?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So now we start to run. So first I open the first company called the post. So I preset the IC costing for the costing method is post. So the entry complete. Second company I'm going to test is post day end.
Case.
And the last case, I'm going to use the company IC costing method set to day end. So the IC item cost only update when user run the day end. The cost is not going to update when post the transaction. Okay, so the test case finished. When I make sure the test case pass in my local machine, I'm going to check into the server and SVN server, and the automation team, the server will automatically run every night, and to make sure any change from other staff will not going to break my existing function. I found it the FRT are very useful, although I only started a year, but I now pretty enjoy writing the FRT. And normally I use the FRT in some case like this. I have to repeat the test case for different options. And I also run the test case FRT for the different database. Sage 300 support different database like the Microsoft SQL, Pervasive. So I don't have to. We don't need to have two users do the QA testing for different database. And also when we release, the product, we have to make sure our program run for different operating systems, like the Microsoft, like the Windows 7, Windows 2003. So same thing for the FRT. We can have FRT available and just run for different operating systems. So it's pretty good. I like it. Thank you.
We're going to hand it over to Rodolfo. He's going to show us a bit of the supporting components for what that will facilitate what Gene has done, and he'll show us maybe the layout map and so on and so forth. So I'll let you take over.
What is the folder?
Oh, the transfer? Okay.
Can you
Leave it open.
Hey, Ken? Can I ask a couple questions?
Absolutely.
In terms of, once the test cases are created, okay,
Yep.
what kind, does it depend on consistent naming of your Windows controls? Is that how it knows where to put where to enter the data?
No, Rodolfo's going to go into that right now. So
Okay.
that's one.
And then are you going to go through what kind of things can cause you to have to do maintenance on your tests and how you
Sure.
do maintenance on them?
Yeah, we're going to do that as well.
Yeah, we'll do that.
And then another question for you is, when you have this whole suite of tests, and all the QA keep adding to it for regression test, do you run the full regression test, or is there a way to have regression tests tied to a piece of code and say, if this code changes, run these 15 tests?
Right.
Are you going to go over that?
Yeah, we can address that.
Okay.
Hi everybody, this is Rodolfo Landa with the automation team. So in this example, Gene asked us to automate a particular screen, the IC3210. The first time someone asked us to automate a screen that hasn't been automated, we have to create a layout map. Initially, we were creating layout maps. First of all, we use an automation tool called AutoIt. This AutoIt has a tool that let us find for each component in a screen, each widget, different information. For example, for this text box, AutoIt tells us what kind of class it is, where is the position in the screen for this one, and with that information, the AutoIt tool will be able to do, for example, a click in a button, knowing the class, the instance, and the position. It will be able to enter text in a text box, again knowing the class, the instance, and the position. So initially we were doing this one by one, item by item, but then developers came up with this program called BB Layout Map Generator, where we at once get most of those that information. So in this case, the only information I will have to manually enter is this in yellow, that there is no information. Mostly kind of 75% of the information, the work is already there. So once we save this file, we will have a XML file that will represent each of those widgets Yep. I want to more. Ouch. Okay. The way to get this out of my way.
You have to close that window. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. So, for example, here is the menu section in the XML file. I can see, for example, that this is file, customize, file import, file export. This belongs to this. So with this information, Autoid will know how to type, click, enter information. The buttons, for example, are here. The save, post, detail. This information is right here. This is kind of difficult to see, so QA will more likely see it this way. So, for example, if they want to know how to use a button, for example, post, they will come here and say, okay, the description here, I have a post button. The part I need to use is this one. And then this is how they use it. Now the question is how we create this, what is behind all this? Well, we have an automation framework written in Java. We have many classes, and it will be very difficult to go in 5 or 10 minutes through all our classes. But this is an example, for example, of a button class. The button class will know how to click a button, how to get text from that button. The checkbox, for example, will know how to check the box, uncheck the box, know if the box is checked. So we have all those widgets. We have a class for each of them, and this Java automation framework will make use of different XML files, the one I was showing you here. So we kind of feed this XML file to this. I lost the word. My sorry, I'm back here. So this XML file will be fed into our automation framework, and through this, for example, this get locator will know, according to this XML file, where in the screen that button, that checkbox is located, and we'll click it, we'll type different actions. And I think it's all for me.
Okay. Any questions for Rodolfo?
XML file generator. Do you want to talk about it?
Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to hand it over to Kirk. He's going to go over the infrastructure to answer some of the questions.
Doris,
Doris' question.
This is Mike. If I could toss in one question, about how long did it take to build this framework?
We originally started playing with all of this about a year ago, but then things changed drastically, and we weren't doing Orion any longer, so we had to stop and refocus on making this all work for VB screens.
Yeah.
We basically switched over to VB screens. It took us about 6 weeks to do that switch over. And that was in January. So from January to now, we have got about 300 plus screens done, finished. So, which is approximately not quite half of the screens for the entire product, the Sage 300 product. So in terms of framework, we are about halfway there in about 7 months.
How many engineers?
3. We have 3 people, but don't forget we also have dev folks who help us out, right? Yeah. So, you know, we have 3 full-time automators who maintain all of this, but as Rodolfo said, when it came to doing those XML layouts, we were doing them manually, and then you know, a smart developer said, hey, I can create a tool that'll do all that work for you. So as Rodolfo showed, when we do a new screen, we literally click on a button, and about 70% of the work is already done by that tool. So that speeded things up drastically. So,
huge.
Once you start automating how you put this stuff together, it even becomes a way faster.
Yeah, I think the key to involve the development actually, all the engineers to share with them the challenges, and then they will come up with ingenious ways to get your work done faster.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Ken?
Yeah.
I'm sure you have this somewhere, and I've probably even seen it, but I'm going to ask anyway. In terms of your metrics for what percentage of your product you have covered under regression testing, and then, what percentage of the high-risk areas or high-complexity areas, do you have a metric on that?
Yeah. What we're doing currently is, because the teams choose the test cases that they're going to do, they're basically taking the manual test cases that we've had in place for several years and saying which are the, what are the highest value ones, and focusing on those. But right now, off the top of my head, I can't say in terms of the product how much coverage we've got, because again, we started this about 8 months ago, and we focused on what is being built right now. Like, what are we working on right now in terms of, and as we develop, what test cases will help us not break things. So unfortunately, Chris Escalante is away on vacation today, who handles all our metrics and everything. And yes, he does have metrics on all of this, but he's out at the moment. I can tell you that of all the test cases that we created, and I've told you this before, I think, we tried and get as many done as we possibly could. I believe we have got about 30 to 35% of those covered today.
Right now, there's about 600 FRTs and about 278 ARTs.
Yeah, so we got since in the last 8 months, we've created a total of
600.
Yeah, almost 900 total test cases, including the ARTs. Yeah. But to break it all out, I'd need to go to the dashboard that Chris runs.
Okay, so let me ask the question a little differently. Okay, the answer to that is no, you don't have it today, and if you do have it, the guy that would have it isn't there. Is that the answer?
That's right. Chris is.
Okay,
we have it in our dashboard.
Yeah, we control that.
Yeah.
It's on the SharePoint.
Okay, so one of the things, with some tools, and it might not be possible with this, but one of the tools for Sage 100 that one of the developers wrote is it can tell through a regression test run the way it happens. It can tell what percentage of the code is touched. So it can tell us if there's some area in the code that's never getting executed from, our regression test cases. So is there any way of capturing what percentage of the logic in your code is being covered by your test cases?
Okay, so Doris, we do have the heat map that do similar things, but then it does not relate to the test. These tests actually don't tell us what coverage we have. We do have a heat map that tells us what code is being touched, and that's from Jenkins database. But from the FRT and ART themselves, it does not tell us what coverage we have.
Your code coverage, I think, Doris, is related pretty much to unit test.
Yeah. Yeah, unit testing.
Right. I'm confused by what you said. Let me see if I can reiterate what you said. You said there's something in Jenkins and you can tell that it doesn't have anything to do with this, and you can tell what percentage of your code has been tested during unit test. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Unit
test. Yeah. Unit test is what you probably, if you've seen a tool like the 100 is using, they're probably showing unit test runs that show code coverage, because there's a direct correlation between unit test and code coverage.
Yeah, I think we do actually have unit tests being run on the main Jenkins server when it's built.
Yeah.
If certain unit tests fail, the Jenkins build won't be successful, and we won't have a 90 build until that problem has been addressed.
Yeah. So these are not unit tests. They're automated tests. So there's a difference there. The automated tests are more user acceptance testing. What you are referring to are unit testing. Unit testings are for developers who write them during the development phase in test-driven development methodology.
I think if we
does it make sense?
We have a link for the main Jenkins server, do we? The main Jenkins build server. The build server would have the unit tests.
Yeah. So these are what we are showing today is the automated tests. They're not unit tests. So they do not fall into the definition of what a unit test is.
Somebody put us on hold. Hey, put us all on mute and let us off back in.
What is that, *696? What is it, Doris?
What?
Do you remember the code?
Put us all on mute.
Well, I got that. Do you know the code?
All guests have been muted. You can unmute your line by pressing *6.
Hey, hi, this is Doris. Am I back again?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
you
good.
can hear us now, right?
Okay, so back to this, the difference between this test and unit test. I guess I'm missing. I understand what you're doing here. I'm just asking in terms of. So what I'm hearing you say is that you don't have a way to tell with this fitness. There's no way to tell what percentage of your code you're exercising with these tests.
No, it has nothing to do. Doris, it has nothing to do with fitness or any. This is the same as the test cases that Randy would put together through his regression. Also, won't give you code coverage. Code coverage is specific to unit tests.
Yeah.
When you're measuring directly against code, how much code coverage you've got, that's unit test. It is not UI testing of any kind.
Yeah, you're right, Doris. This is automated test, so it won't tell you what your code coverage is. It won't tell you.
Unit test is the only test tool that I know that will do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
you have to have a profiler in order to do it too. Most tools require a profiler to even give you that kind of data.
Right. So I mean, there's some tools have a profiler and they can tell you that, and it doesn't. You're just saying that you do that during unit test, not during your regression test. I'm just asking to understand. And then so I understand the need to build as you go along. But I'm asking what I'm asking is in terms of, and maybe this is too granular for this discussion, in terms of a plan for your high-risk areas, and then, you're doing it as a project decides, but, if you have high-risk areas and you're touching those in the code, then what you're doing, if you are touching them, then you guys may or may not be doing regression test case. That's down to the team level, to the QA or whoever, to decide if they want to automate that.
Yeah, so for instance, right now, Doris, we are in regression phase, right? Mm-hmm. So normally we go through and have a bunch of manual, split up into teams and do a bunch of things manually. Mm-hmm. What the team is doing today is, yes, running through all those test cases manually once and then creating an FRT as they go. So that the next time we do it, we have all those high-value regression tests in place.
Okay. And so then what you do is you can run those as many times as you want. So when you run through, I'm assuming these, well, this is the first time you've been through it, but if these survive, you're building a regression test bank of tests. And then at some point in time you run through all of them. Because they do exercise the UI, how long does it take to run all of your regression tests today?
It gets run every night. So what happens at night, after the build completes, and Kirk is going to show you that, there's an auto-deployment script that actually deploys the product onto a server. Mm-hmm. And once that is the upstream dependency for all the tests, And once that dependency is completed and successful, it will kick off whatever test that needs to be run. And actually, all the suites gets run on a nightly basis. And we get a report every morning. Actually, there's a monitor in the hallway that shows us all the tests that failed. And the priority for the automation team on a daily basis, and Team India, there's 3 automators there, is to go through a failed test to see what they are. Okay, yeah, so that's what it is. So what you are looking at is that these are all the failed tests that got run today. And these are the green ones here are all the past tests. So the automators on a daily basis, their priority is to make sure that we look into each one of these tests and see if what the failure is legitimate, is it environment, is that someone broke something, so that needs to be investigated. And also QA and developers need to look at them as well.
So that's the red, so you're saying the red ones are fails?
Yeah, the red ones have failed. These
okay.
are failed tests.
Yeah. So what is a normal reason for failure? What are you finding when you investigate these?
So yeah, this is Kurt. I'm just gonna kind of start my my conversation here. So when I was looking at one of these fail tests, I think some of these they were expected because there are certain things that hasn't been fixed in the program. So some of these tests are failing as expected, and we are aware of that. For some of these, like we tag them so they're like showing yellow, so which means they might be investigated or they're expected to fail. One of these tests, actually every one of these red squares is actually a suite. If you go into that suite itself, you can see that there are actually, like in this example, there are 5 tests. 2 of them failed. Mm-hmm. And in this case, we could actually drill down into the failed results and see at which step it failed. Or we could go into that particular test itself, and you notice that it actually goes into a client machine, like one of the Jenkins slave machine, that we could actually just run it over here and just ensure that we're actually getting consistent results. In this case, I have to say, this particular test, it was okay for a few days, and the last couple of days it has been failing. I'm suspecting it might be kind of some sort of environment problem, like maybe the database hasn't been set up correctly on the server. But because the last couple of days, me and Rodolfo, we were actually busy working on some other projects, so we haven't got a chance to look at this. But normally, following the procedure is that if we see something like this and that's not expected, either the QA or the automator would go into that particular suite and take a look at it and to see if the failing was expected and if it's something that that could be fixed quickly or not. So
so what percentage of I guess what Doris wants to know is what percentage, I guess, of what the fixes or the failures translate to some bad code that broke it, or it's environmental, or your framework is not stable?
I think right now, as of the last month or so, the failing tests they have more to do with the environment comparing to like actual code problem. But of course, there are someday when we get in and we see like the whole screen becomes red and we know something is not right. In those cases, there were like changes in the program that we need to either update in our framework or on the in the databases on the servers to make sure that those run correctly. Yeah. Because sometimes, like say there's database change, none of these tests could actually log into the program. So in that case, like you see everything is red and we know something big has happened, and that definitely needs a lot of attention. So.
Yeah, so there are days that when developer actually change the schema of the database, for example, but then without telling everybody, and that's happened more often than we would like. So we would like actually that usually when that change usually check in, we would like developer actually send an email out to everybody. Oh, just expect this to change, so update your database accordingly. But if that doesn't happen, then we'll see a screen of reds, and then start investigating, usually a lot of time is the database change, for example. So it alerts you to major changes like that, for sure.
Yeah. And on this particular page here, we can see like all the test suites that has been built. We can see that the mock suites, which kind of kicks off the rest. The mock suites are just not really doing anything, but just making sure the servers are in the state of starting running the suites. So we can see that the mock suite is probably run about 2.5 hours ago, and right now we got a couple of tests which are still trying to run. I think this is partly due to like the test suites haven't been perfectly balanced out between all the servers. Right now we manually assign like say one suite to a certain server. We have about 8 or 9 servers over here laid out. You can see most of the servers are actually sitting there doing nothing right now, but there's one server that still has 2 jobs to finish. I guess we as we go along, we'll continue balancing out this to make sure that we can get all the results within the shortest time period. Our team lead actually took a little bit of time and wrote an ASP page to actually grab all the test results from the Jenkins server. As we've mentioned over here, like each one of these is a test suite. So within the suite, you will have like, in this case, there are 8 tests. And some suite would have like 1 test or 2. In this case, there are 2 tests. But what Noah did is that he wrote an ASP page that actually got the numbers of tests instead of the whole suite. So we can see that we have like about 600 passing, 26 failing. And as I mentioned, of those 26, I think half of them were kind of environment problems that we need to look into. I think for the longest time there were about maybe 15 failed cases, and lots of them were expected. And the ART summary, there are about 300 ART tests. I guess James can go over them if there's time, but I'm just going to spend a little bit more time on this. The Jenkins server itself, this is a master Jenkins server. It controls all these client machines. Those client machines actually, let me go to development. They go through the uninstall and install of the program phase whenever there is a new build that's available. On this client machine, there's PowerShell script that kind of detects if a new build is available. Then it will go through the installation, restore the databases, and check out the latest tests from the SVN, basically. And after that's done, it gets pushed over to all the machines. So all the machines have the latest tests. Then it starts the Fitnesse, and then it kicks off all the mock suites, and it runs the rest. So basically, the Jenkins. One good thing about the Jenkins master-slave kind of setup is that all the slave machines, they could have totally different configuration. You could have one machine with Windows 2008, the other machine has Windows 8, and different databases, Pervasive, SQL. And if you get all these suites to run randomly on one or the other server, you get all these kind of different environments tested out. So I think that's a really good advantage. What we're using in the Jenkins is Fitnesse plugin. Right now, the Fitnesse plugin, I mentioned it needs us to kind of manually assign the test suites to the server, but the plugin is coming out with updates that you have a whole bunch of jobs, test jobs sitting in the queue, and every server that's free can go ahead and grab one of those. Right now, we're just kind of looking at that update, and with that kind of updates, we could definitely do a lot more with balancing out the tests between the servers and such. So this is kind of like a page with a summary of all the test suites that we have in the system, and also we have tabs of separate servers, like each individual servers and the tests they are running, so we can see those kind of stats more easily. like we mentioned, this particular monitor is for the FRT suites, and we do have a different monitor here for the ART suites.
The ARTs.
Yeah, the ARTs. So those two monitors, they were set up like in the office. So the first thing in the morning when you walk in, that you look at those servers and see how the status was, and if there's any significant changes that needs to pay attention to. So I think that's pretty much what I want to talk about. If do we have time for anything else?
So the one thing I wanted to make clear in all of this is, using Fitness and a UI test system does not in any way, alleviate the need for unit tests. Unit tests should definitely be going on, nor does it alleviate the need for some form of non-UI testing. In our cases, we use ARTs, and that's fairly new for us. ARTs are basically doing functional testing without a UI in place. The advantage to that is they're easier to maintain, they run faster, and so on and so forth. So I just want to make really clear that any form of automated UI is the most expensive form of automation that you can do. They take the most maintenance. You can do things to reduce that maintenance, but you'll never get it down to, unit tests, which is almost maintenance-free once it's in place. And then, or even if you come up a level, you're not doing unit tests, but you're doing some form of functional automation without a UI. It just is easier to maintain, faster to run. Those are usually automation. Both of those are usually automation that are being done by developers, not by QA people. So, I just want to make that really clear. And what we're going through right now is, now that we have some of the ART framework in place that developers are creating, it's even more important when they discuss, in their stories and so on, what it is the acceptance criteria and what we need to test. They need to decide, here's the test cases, what makes sense to be done without a UI, in which case the developers will go do those test cases, and what makes sense, they should be done with a UI because you want to test the workflow or the end user experience in some way. So you're going to do automation through a UI, and that's when Fitness comes into play. So I would say, if you are going into something like this or planning to do something like this, if the majority of your automation ends up being Fitness, something's wrong. The majority of your automation should be, or Fitness or any other kind of UI testing. The majority of it, as we go forward, particularly as we develop for cloud and for apps and stuff, the majority of that automation is probably going to be done using some form of non-UI tests. The only piece I'm trying to introduce here is what about the pieces that QA need to still test, and is there a way for them to use automation to do that? So I just want to make that really clear. It isn't a matter of Fitness should be, I think Fitness is the tool to use for everything. Absolutely not. Fitness plays a very specific role for UI testing by QAs, and it is the smaller role. Definitely the majority of your automation, I think going forward, as far as doing new development goes, should be being done in some non-UI format.
Yeah, just to add to Ken, as a Scrum Master for my teams, during planning, I really emphasize automation with team keeping automation in mind. Unit test is only an aspect of what test needs to be. And automated test is it's more general than unit tests. Automated tests could include what Ken has mentioned, non-UI based testing at the lower level that are written by developers. And we haven't shown that framework today. I guess time doesn't allow. We call it ART, and basically they are automated regression tests that developers write. During planning, we engage developer and QA to have that discussion during our story planning. What do we need to test? What needs to be automated? What are the risk items to answer your doors when that conversation takes place is really during planning. We want that conversation to take place during planning because that's when we identify risk areas. as we develop the feature.
Okay.
Yeah, Ken, can I say just one other thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, kudos to you and your team. This is great. I know it takes a lot of work, you know, to bring up a new tool, work with it, for QA to learn it, you know, all of those kind of things. And, you know, I think your team's done a fantastic job, so they're all to be commended on that. You know, I think that's just absolutely fantastic. And you can tell them I said that.
Yeah, well, they're all here listening to you, so. Yeah, I think, you know.
That's a new word. That's a new Dorisism. It's fantastic.
Fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, this has also been inspired by Jess Humble, the continuous delivery book as well. I think, Doris, we exchanged email on a couple of occasions in the past on that.
Yeah, so, you know, again, right, as long as, you know, everyone gets the, you know, we're not trying to say this is the only route to go. Yeah. We're just saying this solves one small piece of the puzzle. And for us, to me, the huge eye-opener with all of this has been the amount of conversation, and, you know, and I say, you know, never mind just the automation team who've done a fantastic job, and the A team and other Scrum teams who are using this have stepped up, and QAs are learning new things, I think is great. But the developers themselves also play a huge role in this, in assisting, making the system better. And we're only we're 8 months into this. We're only partway down the road. And I know going forward, as we get the arts more in place, developers are going to be playing even a bigger role in all of this. So, and that's why I wanted the whole team here, is because I think this is about, you know, it's a whole team effort. And we are no longer an automation team as a separate team running automation. It's everybody, and we all measured, is this fitting our needs or is it not? And if it's not, we will change. And as we've done this, we realize, you know, any form of UI test is high maintenance, or certainly higher maintenance than non-UI tests. And now our major focus is, you know, how can we use the arts more and fitness less? And use fitness only when it's necessary to test the end user experience, which, you know, in my mind is, you know, 10 or 15% of your total automation effort.
Yeah. I think on my part, I would love to get feedback from other teams as we move along. I mean, of course, this is it's scratching the surface, because as other team experiment with automation, we would love to get the feedback and guidance that would help everybody.
Okay, I think we're done.
Hey, right. Hello, this is Randy. I know we're over time and everything, but I mean, the big point about fitness is supposed to be the ease of use for the average QA person to create, or at least help out with the automation, right?
Correct.
I know we're over time, but is there any way to demonstrate how quickly or easily it might be to create a very basic test case right now? To actually see it?
Gene? Jason, do you want
to take that? We need to wrap up. This is Mike. We need to wrap up. I would say that if anybody's wanting to see a quick demo or something like that, why don't you send off to Ken and he can set up a separate meeting.
Sure.